Ambassador Kethvar had always prided himself on understanding primitive species. As the Galactic Council's foremost expert on pre-spaceflight civilizations, he had catalogued over 300 different societies across 47 star systems. None had prepared him for humanity. The initial contact had gone smoothly enough. Earth's governments had been surprisingly cooperative, almost eager to join the galactic community. Within months, human delegates were attending council sessions, their representatives politely nodding along with established protocols. They seemed to understand their place as a junior species, grateful, compliant, civilized. That had been the humans' first deception. Now, 3 years later, Kethvar stood in the council's emergency session chamber, watching a holographic display that showed human fleets emerging from hyperspace around 12 different star systems simultaneously. Each fleet bore the insignia of Earth's Humanitarian Relief Corps, but the ships themselves were clearly military-grade vessels that shouldn't have existed. How? Was all Council Prime Yethmora could manage, her usually melodious Etherian voice cracking with disbelief. The human ambassador, an elderly woman named Sarah Chen, remained seated calmly at the junior species table, a designation that now seemed laughably inadequate. She stood slowly, her weathered hands clasped behind her back. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "We told you civilization was a lie the day we arrived. You chose not to listen." Kethvar's memory banks immediately accessed the archived footage from that first diplomatic meeting. He had dismissed Chen's opening statement as primitive philosophy. Civilization is the pretty word we use to hide our weapons until we need them again. The weapon shipyards, General Thos growled, his massive Goliathan frame trembling with rage. Our intelligence said they were manufacturing agricultural equipment. Chen smiled, an expression that Kethvar now realized had always carried a predatory edge. They were tractors, harvesters, irrigation systems. Earth has been feeding 3 different refugee colonies for the past 2 years. We also happened to build them in facilities that could be converted to military production in approximately 72 hours. Impossible, Chief Engineer Vlix insisted, his mechanical appendages clicking nervously. The construction timelines, the resource allocation, our monitors would have detected any deception. Your monitors detected exactly what we wanted them to, Chen replied. Every human child learns about dual-use technology before they learn to read. A fertilizer plant can produce explosives. A satellite communication array can guide missiles. A humanitarian supply depot can store ammunition. The revelation hit Kethvar like a plasma bolt. Humanity's inexplicable generosity, their eagerness to help struggling colonies, their seemingly naive willingness to share technology, it had all been a carefully orchestrated expansion strategy. The agricultural aid to the Zilithian colonies, he said slowly, pieces falling into place. The medical assistance to Vraxian settlements. The infrastructure projects on Kelari mining worlds. All genuine, Chen confirmed. We truly did help those people. But we also learned every detail of your star systems, established supply lines, gained the loyalty of populations you'd written off as expendable, and positioned assets exactly where we needed them. Council Prime Yethmora's form flickered with distress. But why? We welcomed you into the galactic community. We offered you technology, trade partnerships, cultural exchange. Chen's expression softened slightly. Because we've seen this story before. On Earth, we've lived through this exact scenario dozens of times throughout our history. A technologically advanced civilization encounters a primitive one. They offer gifts, establish trade, promise protection and advancement. The primitive civilization becomes dependent, then discovers they've traded their freedom for the illusion of progress. We are not conquerors, General Thos protested. No, Chen agreed. You're something worse. You're well-meaning overlords who genuinely believe you know what's best for everyone else. You've created a galaxy where 200 species dance to the tune of 12 dominant civilizations. And you've convinced yourselves this is natural order rather than systematic subjugation. HFY accessed historical records, searching for precedent. The Terran phrase about buried axes you spoke of, showing us why they were buried. Chen nodded gravely. When human tribes made peace, they would literally bury their weapons as a symbol of trust. But they always remembered where they buried them. Civilization taught us to bury our axes deeper, to hide them better, to smile while we remembered exactly where they lay. The holographic display updated, showing more human fleets appearing across the galaxy. But they weren't attacking. Instead, they were taking defensive positions around the colonies they had been helping for years. This isn't conquest, Chen continued. This is secession. Every world where we've provided aid, every colony we've helped establish, they've voted to join the Human Cooperative Alliance. We're not taking anything that wasn't freely given. You manipulated them, Yethmora accused. We fed them when you let them starve. We sheltered them when you forgot they existed. We treated them as equals when you saw them as resources. If that's manipulation, then perhaps the problem isn't our methods. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. Humanity had spent 3 years systematically demonstrating what the Galactic Council claimed to offer, but never delivered: genuine partnership, mutual respect, and the belief that every sentient species deserves self-determination. What do you want? HFY asked, though he suspected he already knew. Nothing from you, Chen replied. We want you to leave us and our allies alone. Trade with us as equals, or don't trade at all. Respect our sovereignty, or discover that we never actually buried all of our axes. As if summoned by her words, the holographic display revealed the true scope of humanity's preparation. Orbital defense platforms materialized around Earth, apparently cloaked until now. Asteroid bases decloaked throughout the Sol system. Ships that had been disguised as civilian transports dropped their facades to reveal weapons configurations that made the Council's finest vessels look obsolete. You see, Chen said, returning to her seat at what was no longer the junior species table. Civilization was indeed a lie. But not the one you think. The lie was that we had to choose between peace and strength, between cooperation and independence, between helping others and protecting ourselves. She looked directly at each council member in turn. We buried our axes, honored council, but we never forgot that the galaxy is full of people who might make us dig them up again. Today, we're simply reminding you that we remember where we put them. The emergency session ended in stunned silence, with half the galaxy's political structure fundamentally altered by a species that had pretended to be harmless farmers and aid workers. HFY realized he would need to completely revise his understanding of primitive civilizations. Apparently, the most dangerous ones were those that had learned to hide their sophistication behind sincere smiles and genuine kindness. After all, the best weapons were the ones your enemies never saw coming.